सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः, भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः, स्थिरैरङ्गैः तुष्टुवागं स्वस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः, स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः, स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः, स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ओम्। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम्। In the last class, we came up to verse 7. In the second question, verse 7. Yeah. Page I don't see. In the new book, maybe a different page. Yeah. In my page, it is 83. My book, it is 83. My book is 60. Yeah, so different. 60? Don't worry, his is 1932 version. So yours is a new one. So yes. Okay. So the second question basically is about being asked by Bhargava Vaidarbhihi. So this Bhargava is from Bhrigu and Vaidarbhi is from the area which is known as Vidarbha. So we have seen that the significance of that particular thing is this particular student already did his karma kanda, and he is mostly into doing yagas, yajnas, etc. So upasana kanda he has already started, and he has all doubts regarding that particular this one. Vidarbha, darbha indicates actually the grass that is used in this doing of yajnas, etc. So the name roughly indicates the status of the student as well. So that's what we said. He said, Bhagavan katyeva devaha prajam vidharayante katara etat prakashayante ka punar evam varishtha iti. So he was asking about the prana. So since in the previous verse, it appeared that Rishi is telling that prana has got a higher status with respect to prana and rai that Prajapati created. So Prajapati created prana rai, and prana rai in turn created the different aspects of the creation that we are seeing. And in that, Rishi seemed to have indicated prana is of higher status. So the question automatically came to the second person who already understood that. Now suddenly he's thinking that why prana is better than this. So he had more questions. So he is asking if prana is the one which I must be linking myself to overcome the individuality with respect to my Annamaya Kosha. So the first question was related to Annamaya Kosha. If I require to delete or negate that Annamaya Kosha, the gross body, and attach myself to the Pranamaya Kosha, how I will be looking at this prana, how it is supporting. So the Deva indicates when you do yajna, you do havis into the yajna vatika, and the havis goes to specific devas. So he is asking that question automatically as to how come, who is the devas who are supporting this particular jiva as such. So when he talks about jiva, automatically he is not talking about Annamaya Kosha, but he is actually talking slightly above in terms of the senses. So once I negate the I-ness associated with the body, my next thinking will be that, okay, I am not this body, but I am still a seer, a hearer, a talker, etc., etc. So he is now asking about this indriyas. Who is supporting, which are the devas which actually support this body in terms of that. The hidden question is whether I am those senses, if not the body. Am I the pranamaya kosha? That is the question that he says. And among these senses, among these devas who are there, who is Varishta? So generally, the Pipalada Maharshi has said that the Akasha Hovai Deva. So he said actually the 5 Tanmatras that are there: Akasha, Vayuhu, Agni, Apaha, and Prithvi. Plus, in addition, he also said the speech, mind, eye, and ear. So generally, the senses and the whatever the factors that are there behind in terms of the bhutas, these are all the devas that are supporting this body. Main indication of that particular thing, what we have seen is, once we say that it is not the senses that are there by themselves, actually there is something behind which is common with all the bhutas and all the senses that are there in everybody. So I may think that my eye is much better than others, not only in terms of other human beings, but even the other jivas that are there, because we do hear sometimes that this particular jiva doesn't have a colored vision. It has got only black and white vision. So we may think that our eye is much better than others, etc. But what this particular thing is taking out that individuality and bringing commonality. So Vyashti to Samashti. Our always the concept of Upanishads is you have to negate your individual feeling and attach yourself with the universal feeling that is there associated with that. So it says that you think that you have these special powers with you, but really speaking, all the powers that we are thinking they are there, they are not really powers. They are all made with the same bhutas of space, air, fire, water, and earth. Everything is made of that. And they in turn make you think that you are having these senses. You are the sentient being is the feeling that you get at individual level, but you require to negate that and you attach yourself to a common factor behind. That is how he has answered. But he has answered that in a story form. So he says these particular aspects that I mentioned, that space, earth, etc., they are all started fighting among themselves as to who is the Varishta, because the question did ask as to who is the best among them. When they said that, Tan Varishta, the prana, came out and said, sorry guys, you may think that you are the one who is doing that, but really speaking, you don't have any power, you are inert aspects, but I, the prana, provide that particular power to you. So if an eye is able to see, it is the prana, because of the prana behind, eye is able to see and ear is able to hear, etc., etc. When they said that, automatically the story goes that these powers said they didn't believe. So then it is as if the prana is going out of the body, it started getting up and going out of the body, as if Eva. We have seen that word Eva being mentioned in the 5th verse as such. No, 4th verse, sorry, 4th verse. So then when the prana started to get up, just like when the Madhukara Raja, that is the queen bee, goes out of that particular beehive, automatically every other bee just follows it. It is as if like that example is given here. When prana is about to leave, all other powers, including the senses, they were forced to get up and go. So they recognize the power behind their own existence is nothing but that prana. So they started praising the prana from verse 5 onwards. So it says this prana burns as the fire, shines like a sun, rains like cloud. The bright one is the wind. It is the earth. It is the matter. So it is both that which has form and that is formless, and also what is immortal. So here in 5th verse, actually very clearly it is telling that it is because of prana, the entire aspects of these bhutas are existing. So the 5 bhutas are mentioned here very clearly and said that it is the prana behind which actually makes these bhutas existing in the universe as such. Verse 6 we said, Arayuva Rathanabhav Prane Sarvam Pratishtitam. So it is as if the axle is there and the spokes of the wheel are there. 6 spokes is what we told in the verse 1 we know. because of this particular hub which is there, the entire wheel is moving. Really speaking, the hub itself will appear as if it is not moving, but it is because of this, actually, the entire wheel is moving. And it says it is similarly the prana which is making the entire wheels of the body actually move forward, or wheels of the life move forward. What we have seen here is in the first chapter, we have seen again when the example of this wheel and hub is given, it was linked to the chakras which are there from Mooladhara to Agnya Chakra. That particular aspect is being mentioned here. So here, by the very presence of this prana, not only pranamaya kosha, but the entire aspect of your working as a human being, as an individual, everything is because of that particular prana. At a very high level, the recognition that the prana is responsible for the entire aspect of our living is mentioned here as Ara Iva Radhanabhav Prani Sarvam Pratishtam. Not only in senses, but it is Pratishtam everywhere. It is established throughout my body in terms of its working. So whether you take as Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, or Anandamaya Kosha, all koshas work because of the, and very appropriately this thing talks about a wheel and a hub and the spokes that are there. Yes, sir.
It appears to be focus on these koshas. At one point, does it get revealed, if at all, that these koshas are focus?
Sorry, I didn't get the last this one.
That these koshas are focus.
It will tell maybe in the last verse when we talk about, it will deny, it will negate the entire aspect that is there. Not only koshas, but everything that we talk about. You have different different ways of actually addressing the hocus pocus, as he puts it. Yeah, different ways of addressing that. So in some cases, it can be if you are using a drishya viveka, a seer-seen relationship. Normally, we have to go into the bodies which are there. Means our avasthatraya we talk about. Avasthatraya is a waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state. There, drik and drishya will start coming into picture. You have that one option of describing this elusive nature. Second way is more in terms of pancha koshas. We talk of Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha. You describe all that very beautifully to say that these are the koshas through which a human being or a being actually interacts with the world outside through desire. So you bring in at that particular time a vasana or a desire aspect of when you talk about the koshas. Again, koshas will be negated, and you say the desire itself is not a correct, it's elusive by nature, and we go back to the oneness of the Brahman. Another way to look at is this aspect of chakras. So either way you call that, everything will actually negate the experience that you are feeling at an individual level and attach yourself to the Brahman, which is the one truth, is how we talk about. It's only way of how each one of the rishis can describe or which appeals to you the most. So if your aspect is more in terms of a druk-drishya viveka type of a aspect is easy for you, you follow that path. Otherwise, you follow the other path. All paths will ultimately negate the elusive nature of the creation that I am experiencing. Yeah. Okay. So, in that, in verse 7, Prajapatis charasi garbhe tvameva pratijayase. I think we read this, yeah? Yes. Okay. Tubhyam prana prajatvima balim haranti ya pranaihi pratishtita. So here it talks about as Prajapati. Prajapati is the Brahma, or the Lord of the creatures, or creator, you can talk about of the creatures. O Prana, you alone move in the womb of as a fetus, and you indeed are born again as a child. So it is bringing in certain aspects into this particular this one to say that these jivas are not generated again and again. To start with, to answer the first question again, he is confirming that. And he says not only that the same jiva is born again and again, it is the same prana that is born again and again. So it's a prana as a jiva, he is born again and again as a charasi garbhe. So in the womb, a fetus will move around. It is nothing but that prana, which actually comes into this particular one. To thee, O prana, who are always dwelleth in the other pranas, sense organs, these creatures offer oblations. Now, Gurudev has got a very beautiful take on this particular one. It talks about that the other pranas, actually, if you see in this one, Praja Balim Haranti ya prana hi pratishtasi. So same prana is now being told that you not only are born again as a child in the mother's womb, but the very senses that make that child operate in this particular world is nothing but the prana. So it is the prana itself is reflected as the senses, because we are now talking of pranamaya kosha and the senses, the importance of senses. It is telling that it is the same prana which was born before. The idea is that if you have your forefathers, the same forefathers are born again in terms of that, not necessarily to you, but they are also again they are born, and the same prana is reflected as the senses that are there. And Gurudev says very beautifully, these senses, what they are doing is they are offering the powers that they have of either seeing, hearing, etc., the 5 powers that are there, as balim haran. Balim is not killing of something in front of this one. Bali is offering, oblation that is there. So in case of a yajna, you offer a bali into the fire so that it goes up, kind of a thing. Yeah, so that is the balim haranti that we are talking about here. So the same balim haranti that we are talking about, senses, when they bring in with their powers that are provided by the prana, the sense objects that are coming into your mind, they are being offered back to the prana. So it's a kind of a poetic way of telling that it is the same prana which is born in as a child, same prana that exists as senses to the child, and the powers that are given by that are nothing but prana. And as a result, the sense objects that are coming into the mind are being offered as a balim to the same prana. So it's the same prana that exists everywhere. We are only experiencing this variation in terms of the various sense objects. That is how the Gurudev is describing this aspect of okay. As per Gurudev again, this particular aspect of viewing everything as a yajna and everything as a offer back. We have seen a similar this one in chapter 1 also. When we talked about Vaishwanara, he says every small activity that you do, whatever the activity you do, whether you're eating, let us say, if you take that activity as a yajna that you are doing to that Vaishwanara who is inside, who is the universal person existing in each one of us as individual jiva. So it's the same Vaishwanara who is there in everyone. And if you convert the eating as a kind of an oblation back to that particular this one, bring in yajna, everything that you put in mouth will become a pious object that you are offering back. If you eat with that particular kind of a thinking, you don't eat any stuff which you believe is not auspicious. Doesn't matter if it may differ from each one of us, doesn't matter that, but whatever you're offering, it will be an auspicious thing that you are giving back to. So every action of yours can be converted into a yajna as such. And when you do that, automatically recognition of Vaishwanara means again negating the individual that I feel, and it is the one Vaishwanara who is reflecting as an individual each one of us. So this yajna aspect comes again and again. In many of the Upanishads, you will find this. So here we are seeing that the senses are similarly offering that particular yajna by offering their own powers back to the prana. Mainly, what it comes is in terms of the existence itself, reduce the individuality and more attach yourself to the higher self is how this one comes. Main message that comes is that. Okay. Verse 8, we'll read. Devanamasi Vahnitamaha Pitrunam Prathama Swadha Rushinam Charitam Satyam Atharvangi Rasam Asi. So here the term Swadha is being mentioned here in the first word. Swadha is we normally remember our Pitru, the forefathers who are there, at every function that we do, religious function that we do. So Swadha is that particular activity. It is called Nandi Shraddham. I don't know whether anybody is aware of that word. So whether you do any of the Sodasha Samskaras that you do to the children or persons, basically, at the beginning of each of these Sodasha Samskaras, you remember the Pitruna. So here it is being told, because we told it is the same jivas which are born and reborn again, they are being used and reused again, the jivatva, as we talk about. We are telling that particular Pitru, we remember them because every jiva that comes in, they leave certain samskaras behind. Yeah, they leave a particular vasanas, they gain that vasanas and goes back, and they are born again. But every jiva kind of leaves that that type of a feelings or that type of a desires, they continue to hold as such. So every Nandi Shraddham when we do, we kind of give that particular person that, okay, we are taking care of those desires, you don't have to worry, you now go away, kind of. So I think up to 3 generations of these ones are recognized, remembered, and some Shraddham is given in terms of their existence. We remember that in terms of our own aspects of the tendencies that we gain from them. So 3 generations of that are kind of a coming. So we remember that is how the whole concept is there in terms of this Nandi Shraddham. So Swadaha is that. Prathama Swadaha means we give that as at the beginning of every such a activity, we remember that prana. We remember those people and we remember the prana. There is nothing but you. Devanasi Vahnitam. So you are the best carrier to the gods, and you carry first oblations to the forefathers. Who is that? This one is being told that the fire that is there, so the same prana in the way of a fire is the best carrier of this Swadha to the particular forefathers and also to the gods. And we say that you remember that this is the fire which is there associated with your pranamaya kosha, and that particular aspect is nothing but prana. So it's more of, I think, every day what they are seeing happening in front of their eyes, now it is being told, although you may have a different opinion about this, but every aspect, whether you give it to Pitrunam or whether you give it to God, you are actually giving it to the same prana. Prana is the thing. As I said, this particular whole chapter of this will be about prana, and you are required to say that prana is everything. Remember that, recognizing the aspect of that prana. Sure.
When you say you every jiva leaves some asanas behind, is that the ones that were exhausted already, or is it just to be those vasanas were in common with who they're going to be reborn as.
It's a one which you have actually gained during the life when they were there. So if a Pitru is there, we call it a samskara. Samskara turns into vasana once the jiva is over. You are gaining those tendencies when you are there. They convert to vasanas, and which definitely will have an effect of them in the next months. Whole idea is we require to actually negate all these aspects that are there. Remember that as a Vedanta class, we don't have to worry about whether vasanas are there or not. Our idea is to say that whole vasana itself is an illusive concept. But as long as you are in the cycle of this birth and death, there is a concept behind that. Everything happens because of a logic. It doesn't happen without any logic. It happens because then you will be responsible for your karma. It is not that Ishvara who is doing everything. That question may come as to, if Ishvara is doing everything, why that Papa Punya is coming to me? These type of questions will automatically come, Moini.
I am a little bit confused here. We say when a person dies, he goes to some other form of life. And when we do these karmas, I have seen doing these sanskaras, and they take the Gotra name and Pitras and grandfather's names.
Correct. 3 generations we take.
3 generations, yeah. So, little bit conflict here that if the person is taking, or the soul is taking other form, so it's not really for them. I think it's for us.
As I'm telling, this particular aspect is a leftover of those vasanas or tendencies that are there in those ones. Whether I imbibe them everything, whether I converted that full into Sanchita karma or something is still left behind, a process is still going on as per this.
So it is just in line, just only if we hold that particular line to negate all those things, then it makes little sense.
Correct.
Otherwise, it doesn't have that relevance to the ultimate higher.
Agree. Agree. We are not yet at the higher level. The person who is asking this question and the answer to whom it is being given is only at the Pranamaya Kosha. He just completed the Annamaya Kosha. So the answer is being given at that particular level. When you go to 6th question, you will have a different opinion that is coming from the Rishi that we will see. Okay. So it is telling that it is Devanamasi Vahnitamaha, is carrier of the oblations that are there. Pitrunam Pradhamaswadaha, Rushinam Charitam, Satyam Angirasam, Atharvangirasam, Asi. Angi is the body. Body is called Angi, and Angirasam is the essence of the body. The essence of the body is taken as the senses that are there. Senses are called as essence because without those senses, really there is no life associated with this. So here he says that Angirasam, the very senses that are there, which are being operated by the Upaprana. Upaprana is how the Gurudev is talking about those senses. So senses, when we say not directly the eye, ear, etc., but the Upaprana, because of which this particular aspect, because Prana is told that I myself split into 5 and I support you. Now he is telling that Upaprana that we talk about is nothing but the Prana. So recognition that the same Prana appears to be dividing itself into 5 and supporting the 5 senses that are there associated, and that becomes the Angirasa. In fact, this Angirasa is one of the Atharvana Rishi. So the one who is giving is, so he is actually using his own name kind of a thing to say that even I am that prana associated with this particular.
In other it said, it described senses as deva.
Devas, correct.
And here senses are just like we take the senses.
Here actually senses are prana, upapranas that we talk about. So whether we call it as the individual deva, when we talk about, all those individual devas are the split aspects, the divided aspect that we are seeing. So the same deva, for example, eye has got sound has got direction as the drik as the deva. I has got sun as the deva. So similarly, we may have different devas, but really speaking, they are nothing but the prana in the form of upapranas. They are really supporting. So devas, you don't have existence of your own. The senses, so-called senses, have got doesn't have existence of their own. It is the same prana which actually support all the senses. Again, bringing in that oneness is how the thought process is going on now. He has to bring that particular student who has come and asked that question as to how many devas are there. So for him, these devas are real. Because every day they are doing that yajna yaga and they are giving havis and they are expecting that it is being received by that particular god, etc. That is the mindset of that particular student. Now he has to bring him out of that mindset to say that these devas doesn't exist on their own. It is the same prana. If you want to say prana, okay, prana says, I split myself into this 5. So you may have different name for these gods that you have, but I am the same prana who is supporting. Now we are recognizing, although I said that there are 5 pranas, these 5 pranas are nothing but the same prana, is how being told here. So prana is the chief factor through its subdivision, it supervises and executes the job of perception through the sense organs. That is how the Gurudev is trying to say here. Yeah. Next, 9th verse. Yeah. Indrasvam prana Tejasa Rudrosi Parirakshita Tvam Antarikshye Charasi Suryatvam Jyotisham Patihi. Jyotisham Pati means he is the Lord of the lights. Lord of the lights is Jyotisha Pati. Indrastvam pranaha tejasa rudrosi parirakshita. So here, what is being told is in terms of the Trinity. We have a concept of creator, destroyer, and sustainer. Creator, sustainer, destroyer. Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, that we normally talk about. Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra is how we normally talk about the 3 aspects of that. Now, these 3 aspects that we are talking about are nothing but the 3 gunas that we have. So a slightly different concept is being brought here in terms of that when we talk about Brahma, for example, Brahma is the Rajoguna. Rajoguna becomes Brahma. Here it is being told as Indra. Indra is the one who actually creates everything, is the term that is used here, Indrasva. And the Vishnu aspect, which is the sustainer aspect, is the Sattvaguna. Sattvaguna, which is there, is the sustainer aspect, which is there. It is being told as Parirakshita. It sustains, it protects, is the Parirakshita. And Rudrasi is the Rudra, which is there, who is the destroyer aspect, is the Tamoguna. So these 3 aspects, the three gunas are being told here are nothing but the prana. So these gunas are something which are at a Anandamaya Kosha level, really speaking. Anandamaya Kosha is a very peculiar one. Anandamaya Kosha definition of this is that which cannot be understood is Anandamaya Kosha, really speaking, because they are Anandamaya Kosha, whatever is at that level, is something which cannot be cognized by the senses. It is beyond the senses, and mind is one which is at the Anandamaya Kosha. So Anandamaya Kosha definitions in the Shastras is very, very subtle. So it is told as it is 3 gunas, it is ignorance, it is vasanas. Any of these terms, if you really want to think with your mind, very, very impossible to understand them or grasp them with your mind and senses. You cannot see it, you cannot hear it, you cannot touch it, you cannot taste it. None of that can happen. Neither you can think about through your mind. Because the very mind is because of these causal factors of vasana, ignorance, whatever you call that particular aspect at a causal level are beyond the grasp of the senses. And these 3 gunas are actually part of that particular aspect which creates you, which makes you what you are. So you may think that I am so and so, I have such a, you may think I'm very sattvic by nature. Really speaking, the test will come, then only you will know really you are sattvic or not. But by and large, you may think you are sattvic by nature, or you are rajasic by nature, or you are tamasic by nature, doesn't matter. So any of that in terms of gunas that we are talking about is nothing but the trinity with respect to the creation. So by taking the names of Indra, Rudra, and the protector Vishnu, these gunas are being talked about here. And you move in the sky, you are the sun and the Lord of all lights, or the life. Life itself is what is being told here. So the prana is seen as the sun. Yeah, sun means what? Jyotishampati, Suryatvam, Jyotishampati. Sun we have already seen is nothing but equivalent to the prana. So it is the prana which is the aspect that is there, seen as the sun, or the total energy that sustains this entire being is being now told. It is the same prana which is actually giving here. And now prana is also seen as the power behind the gunas, power behind the trinities, power behind the gunas. So if I am having certain gunas that are there in me, which makes up my individuality, each of these gunas is nothing but the prana, which is reflecting as the gunas is being told here. Antariksha is a very peculiar term that is there, normally translated as the space. Antariksha, when you go to Puranas, how it is told is, this Antariksha is the space between the earth and the heavens. If you, some of the Puranas define Antariksha as the space between earth and the heavens associated. Really speaking, what it is talking about is the Annamaya Kosha or Muladhara Chakra is made up of earth element. So between that and the aspect of Ajna Chakra is the heaven that we talk about, where the senses exist at a very subtle level. So after Anandamaya Kosha is Ajna Chakra, and this Ajna Chakra is the heaven that we talk about, and anything in between is this Antaraksham that we are talking about. So this prana that is Charasi as an Antariksha is the space in between, is the subtle prana that is sustaining this entire concept of we call as the human body. Bodies, we can say, both gross, subtle, and causal, all aspects that are there are nothing but this particular prana, Antariksham Charasi. So it moves about.
So you said Agya Chakra, but what about Sahasrara? That is Anandamaya. No?
No. Vishuddha Chakra is Anandamaya Kosha, and above that is Ajna Chakra.
Yeah, and then Sahasrara.
And Sahasrara is well above. Yeah,
Yes.
Sahasrara doesn't have any particular kosha that is attached. Mundakopanishad actually talks about Anandamaya Kosha. There is a term called Hiranmaya Kosha.
Yes.
But normally that is also not talked about. Normally we end with Anandamaya Kosha. But there is
Vishuddhi Chakra.
as Vishuddhi Chakra. And the Vishuddhi Chakra is this. But Ajna Chakra is more subtle in terms of the where the senses are there. If you talk about the senses of the Indra power is associated with Ajna Chakra. So all Indriyas are part of that at a subtler level.
So, Shankarji, you mentioned avidya, or at that level, Anandamaya Kosha, that cannot be known by our senses or understanding, intellect and all. So someone grasps that. I don't know how they got, with what faculty. If you need to dissolve and you gain that, how one can know that something was there? And how come we are reading those aspects as well?
These aspects they are coming because of Veda. Now, when we talk about Veda, it is Apaurusheya. It is not that somebody has developed them with their intellect. No human being, no other being has come out with this particular knowledge, including Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. There is a book written by Shankaracharya also, Prapanchasara or something like that. One text is there. He describes this one through a story again, as if Vishnu, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, they are created, they don't know what to do. They are actually thinking why we are here, we have no idea. then Mahavishnu comes and gives the knowledge by telling that it is Brahman who gave the knowledge to. So if you see any of the Upanishads, it always insists on the concept that none of the Veda is created by Purusha. So they become Apaurushayam to start with. How do we know? Because Vedas tell us it is there. We accept that as the Pramana. Very, very important concept of our Vedanta is that Pramanas are many, like Pratyaksha Pramana, the senses that are there, and Anumana Pramana. There are 4 other Pramanas Nyaya Shastra talks about, but it really doesn't matter. This Pratyaksha Pramana, Anumana Pramana are the 2 Pramanas with which we understand this particular world. So when it comes to the things which are Apaurushayam, which are beyond the realm of the senses that we talk about, we require a different Pramana. So Veda becomes a independent Pramana for knowing Vedanta. Veda becomes the independent Pramana. What is independent Pramana? Swatantra Pramana it is called. What is independent Pramana is there? It is an independent Pramana as far as the color and form is concerned. Means to say that if I want to understand the color, if I want to understand the form, I will use only my eye as the Pramana. It's an independent Pramana. I cannot say that, okay, I will close my eye, my ear is open, now I will recognize the color is coming in front. Not possible. So it is a Swatantra Pramana as far as this object is concerned. Vedanta says that the only Pramana that will give you is Veda. So Veda becomes an equally like your eye, ear, etc., a Pramana by its own. And when we talk about Shraddha, the word, we describe and define that Shraddha as many other terms. In terms of Shraddha is your faith as far as Shastra is concerned or Guru is concerned, that they are telling truth. But really speaking, Shraddha is to understand, and not only understand, accept that Veda is the only Swatantra Pramana for knowing the Vedanta. That is what Shraddha is all about.
So one thing, because when I read what's there in Vedas, so Upanishad is kind of 5 to 10%, but rest of the 80% are Pavan or mantras and all. So if those were already there, and we are focusing with this ultimate thing, those are 5 to 10, why there was need for those 80% or 90% that we are not practicing at all?
Correct. The aspect of this particular thing, what we talked about, Veda is the Pramana. That's also Pramana for reaching this particular goal of your spiritual life. Vedas talk about Karma Kanda and it talks about Jnana Kanda. Jnana Kanda is what we are now talking about in terms of the Mukti or the Upanishad knowledge that we are talking about. But any human being that is coming into this particular world, he comes with certain pre-built ignorance. It is a capital with which we are born into this particular world. Yeah? You require to overcome that. And the way Shastras talk about or Vedas talk about is that this Karma Kanda is a very, very important aspect with which we overcome that particular negativity or the ignorance and push you into the path of spirituality. So the religious life becomes a very important aspect when it comes to reaching this spiritual path that we are talking about. You say that we are not following that, yeah, which is true. We are not following the same in terms of how a Karma Kanda is talked about there. But when you really read into this particular aspect of Karma Kanda, it actually has got one basic backbone to that is the Panchamahayajna. You know Panchamahayajnas that are there: Bhuta Yajna, Brahma Yajna, Manushya Yajna, Pitru Yajna. So these are the
Yajna. Like the
no, yajnas are Pancha Yajna.
But they are also related to the rin we have.
You can look at it as a runa. Really speaking, it need not necessarily be runa. but it is a kind of a lifestyle one requires to develop. Whether really I require to put a fire somewhere and put Havas there and say Indra is there and it is going, or you can have your own way of having this runas. If you talk about as a runa, how I pay back these particular aspects that are there. The 5 aspects that are there. Brahma means I require to have that type of a lifestyle where I go to temple once in a while, or you have your own mandir in this one. You have a lifestyle of accepting that there is something which is beyond me, becomes a Brahmaruna, for example. And you can go and have a aspect of supporting the other people in terms of going and doing service. It becomes by itself becomes a Brahmaruna, it's called. And Pitraruna is respecting your elders, respecting your response. And it need not necessarily be done in terms of a swadha that we are talking about. At that particular society level, that was there. But if you are able to do that at our own response in terms of inculcate those values in the children, to accept that elders are, they may look foolish to you with that technology that is going on, but really speaking, it is because of their knowledge that this particular thing has come to me. If you have that type of this one, it becomes Pitruna that you are, Pitru Yajna that you are doing, or Bhuta Yajna. You now don't, other Bhutas, other than human beings, you take care of them. That becomes Bhuta Yajna for this. Yeah, so whether it has completely gone out of the society, no, these 5 yajnas are still going on. There are values that are being inculcated in a different way, different form, possibly. At that particular time, that was the way it was done. But if we inculcate and maintain these 5 yajnas, that karma kanda is still going on. And if you do that, it will automatically push you into the spiritual path. That is where the Upanishads come into picture.
Yeah.
Does it?
It is, yeah, more or
More
less,
or
it is going with that. Only one of my concerns was, since it came by itself, nobody has done, and it is the pramana, why we are forcing our interpretation. We should take as it is. That was my thing.
Correct. Yeah, so that for that, there is one answer which is there. In the sense, you have a praman. For example, I is telling me that there is a water somewhere in the desert away from you. You have that Mrigadrishna. Yeah, I is giving you that. And I is the only one which can give you that particular feeling that it is a water which is coming. So sometimes what happens that we require a supporting pramanas as to how I interpret this particular knowledge that is coming to me through this particular pramana that I am using. You don't deny the pramana to say that this is rule, so I will not consider this I at all. From tomorrow, I will not see any object because I am seeing this Mrigadrishna. This is I don't do that. I use the other pramanas associated, supporting pramanas, to interpret this phenomena that I am experiencing. So similarly, Veda is the only praman, Swatantra pramana to know Vedanta. There is no other pramana. I cannot see God, I cannot see Brahman, I cannot taste Brahman. None of the other pramanas work for me. It is only Vedanta is a pramana. But I require the supporting pramanas to interpret what is being told there. And fortunately, unfortunately, the language has changed over so many discourses. And it is not that we are interpreting that particular Veda that is coming on our own. That is why it is very, very important. Again and again told, including Mundaka Upanishad, including every Upanishad, tells that the only way you will know this particular aspect of is by going to a Guru. Guru and his interpretation is the only one which you do. And how, if you ask Guru, how do you know? Guru says, my Guru told me. He will never say this is my interpretation. So even when any Upanishad starts, he says, oh, that but started with Surya. Surya gave it to his son gave it to his son, he's going to go to this fellow and that fellow. Different names are given, but every aspect that we are talking about is always a Guru who has told. Nobody claims that's why none of the Upanishads will have any authorship, because the knowledge is not mine. So everybody hesitates to put a name to a knowledge that is coming here. That's why even Shankaracharya, till Shankaracharya's time, there are so many of his works, people say he has not written. Some other Shankaracharya. So we call it as Adi Shankaracharya. So there are so many Shankaracharyas. Anybody has written, nobody will say this is my knowledge. They are offering it to Shankaracharya. So like that, every aspect that we are talking about requires a supporting this one to interpret. And the term that you normally come across is Mimamsa. When you talk about this one, Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa and Purva Mimamsa that we talk about, if it is Karmakanda, Purva Mimamsa, which is there, every aspect that is there may not be clear to me. So how I learn what is Karmakanda, how I must put Yajnavedi, how much, which is the east, how everything is given by the Guru who is there. You require to go and learn them. Just because it is Karmakanda, I cannot do on my own reading the book. You require to go to somebody who has done that before and who has learned it from his Guru. So always there is an aspect of supporting aspect to interpret the interpret this pramana that is coming to us. So including the same thing you require. So as far as pramana is Veda, but you do require what we normally call it as yukti and anubhuti. So these two terms you must have heard our Guruji mentioning many times. Yeah. So yukti, anubhuti, and shastra. Three together must be the one which will give you the correct interpretation of this. Anubhuti is nothing but pratyaksha pramana, and yukti is nothing but the second one, interpretation aspect. Yeah. So these two aspects, three must not be a contradiction to each other. Suppose my interpretation of Veda is this, but it is in direct contradiction to my anubhuti, that is the experience, and yukti, my logic. Then I will not deny the Veda as a pramana, but I will now adjust my interpretation of the Veda to this. Again, it is difficult because yukti and anubhuti are as per the current, my own aspects that I have developed till now. So again, I interpret this, what yukti I must use to understand this, and what anubhuti is the correct one to interpret. So this this particular aspect is Shankaracharya has written volumes and volumes. In fact, Brahma Sutras are nothing but that encapsulates this particular aspects. Brahma Sutras talk about how to interpret this word Atma in this particular Upanishad when it came at this particular time. How that Atma should be interpreted. It is so difficult. So in a capsule form, Vyasji has given that Brahma Sutras. Now we don't understand those capsules. So you require a Shankaracharya to come and interpret Brahma Sutras, and some Sureshwaracharya to interpret what Shankaracharya told. It's so complex in terms of this. So that's how this goes. I hope I was able to answer that. Okay, any other questions?
I just perhaps wanted to add, so there is the two, like Gyan and Vigyan. So how you start and where you end. So I found this very interesting. Panditji in the Hindu Mandir actually explained it very well. That Vigyan requires, you show the evidence. Any experiment we do, whether we are proving some hypothesis, So first, and then you come to, this is a solid, or this is a liquid or gas. Yeah. So it goes that way, but Gyan goes the other way. You accept something which is very subtle, not experienced first. You accept, yes, I accept that this Upanishad is correct, and the evidence will follow. So his thing was that you don't try that this is a chemical experiment. I start with this and I should end up here. Gyan does not work that way. It works the opposite. So your Shraddha and Vishwas have to come first, and the proof will come later. And in lives, we can think of it like there are so many experiences that all of us have at an intuitive level. So when you see, Panditji says like that, when you see clouds in the sky, it's going to rain. Why do you know it? because it's an experience. You see clouds, but if you're able to see, there's not a single cloud, but I know it will rain. This afternoon it will rain. How did you know that? That is an intuitive, because you tuned into the bigger mind, the universal mind, and then you knew, despite there being no evidence. So I feel it's helpful for me to understand many of these concepts that way, that I put Shraddha and Vishwas, I see it is correct. I can't understand it now, but I will not question it now.
Interesting. Jnana Vijnan, normally we have a different interpretation as well. Jnana is something which comes from others' mind. As long as it is others' experience, it is Jnana for you. When it becomes your integral, intuitive knowledge yourself, becomes Vijnan for you.
Oh, okay.
Experience.
Yeah, other one is not right or something. Yeah.
For me, it's Niti Dhyasana. So when it becomes your internal, it is Niti Dhyasana. Maybe, yeah, but this is interesting.
Nididhyasanam is a process. Vijnanam is the end result for you.
Oh, okay.
Ways of looking at is
No.
different. Terms can be
Interesting.
used differently.
Yes, yes.
Just I'm telling there are other aspects, other concepts that are associated with these terms as well. Yeah. So when Guru says there is Brahman,
Mhm.
Tattvamasi, Tattvam
Yeah.
is a jnana.
Yes.
Aham Brahmasmi is a jnana. I am that is a, you have gone through that Nididhyasanam and you concluded that I am that Brahman.
If you realize it.
If you realize it, of course, of course.
That is like, to me, both would be Gyan, but actually one is Vigyan.
Vijnan. Vijnan means my own experience. It is not somebody else's experience, but my own experience.
You have to go through the
I
process.
have
No,
I have
that is
imbibed
very-
that, and I have now.
That is what the Vakyas, yeah. And so I would say, in my like, very small mind and not well read, that would be Gyan. But good to think about.
Think about it. Correct.
So one other question, Shankarji.
Mhm.
So because of all the different interpretations that we have, is that why we have similar names or we have different names for the same thing? Because I find I get really confused because, for example, here's Prajapati, right? And then it's the same as Jiva, and then so on. So I get really confused with that. Is that why there's so many different names for the same thing?
In a way, yes, because that is what we are seeing here, especially in this one. We are seeing the same prana is actually manifesting it. He's not creating something new. The Prajapati manifested himself as prana and Rai. Prana is the one which is now manifested as the varieties that we are talking about. So I see prana everywhere. I don't see any variations. I see prana everywhere. So the prana can be used for any level of my existence now. See? So similar to Atma. Atma is a term that is used to identify the self, but self can be identified now at various levels. The same is manifested there. So it can be a body. So Dehatma. If you go into some of these movies, horror movies, even Pretatma will come into picture. So there are so many Atmas that are there flying around. So everything is Atma. How do I interpret that?
And Paramatma. There's also Paramatma.
No, to identify, to say that so many Atmas are there, I am not getting confused. Who is Brahman? I say Paramatma. I attach an adjective to that to say Paramatma. Parama means there is nothing beyond that. There is nothing beyond is Parama. So that's how the Paramatma came into picture. And you are right in that sense that because of the same words that are used, you require interpretation also at what level a student is. So that is where the Guru comes into picture. He knows exactly where he is. We are seeing that here at different
Also, is
levels.
there a truth in this that because the nature of time is cyclical, the same, so if we go to any of the Purans, they are revealed in every creation. And so like Hanumanji, you will see different things about Hanumanji. And in different Purans, he will be referred to as a little bit different. So in order not to get confused, you have to remember in which time span are they talking about this. So yes, at least when you do Shiv Puran, Shiv Bhagwan, Vishnu Puran, Vishnu.
Everybody becomes a Brahman by themselves. That is true. But remember, Purans are not itihasas.
Yes.
So Puran does not necessarily conform to a particular timelines as such. Need not
Yes.
necessarily.
No, it does
Can
not,
be
yeah.
Quran is. It's a way of seeing the same truth, but in a story form to carry forward. That knowledge that is there is the Purans associated with that. Okay, we'll stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Interesting discussions. Thank you.